open your email on another screen while you're watching this on your phone or whatever, and start just typing questions in and get ready to send me that email straight after this show. Because I think this is going to be a good one. This is going to change the way you think about quoting and estimating. Okay. How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. My name's Max, I'm your host, and I'm the president and CEO here at Smith & Sons in Canada, and I'm the ambitious founder at elitebusinessadvisory.com. Welcome back. Appreciate you've been around for the longest time. I'm just loving the fact that you're still getting some value, and if you're brand new in the room for the first time, I think you're going to get something out of this today. Obviously, we're speaking to mostly general contractors and residential home builders. So, welcome to the boardroom. Obviously, we are wanting to deliver a lot more value practically, so you can really, we talk a lot about it, and we have done so far, but we just felt we want to take it up a notch, and here we are with another whiteboard session. So, be sure to like and subscribe. One of these drops every week, and get across to the Facebook group, their private group for Business for Builders, VIP. Answer the questions. If you're a good sort, I'll let you in. And I think that's about it. Look, feel free to email me as well. Obviously, I specialize in custom coaching for contractors. So if you're a builder, if you're a residential general contractor, then feel free to just shoot me an email. We'll sit down, I'll give you a complimentary coaching session, and we'll talk a little bit about your business and what you do, and look at some of your goals, and then perhaps look at the performance of your business to figure out where we can make some improvements. So, right, as usual, we want to give you some steak and potatoes. So this month, obviously, we're talking about project or estimating and project costing. So I'm going to touch on a little bit more of that today, and I'm going to bring to you something that is probably a little bit of a different, a little bit of a variation, I would say, on what I've always promoted in the past. Pretty standard for whether you're a cost plus guy or a gal, or whether you're a fixed price. You take your cost of goods sold and you put a markup on. And that is something that, can work. As far as simplicity goes, there's no question. That is a good way of doing it. But today, I'm going to talk to you about a profitable pricing system, and one that I've just started to define because I wanted to get more predictability in my profit. Okay, and so as you may or may not know, I have a controlling interest in Smith & Sons Coldstream, which is another franchise. It's a franchise. I essentially bought a franchise off myself with a business partner, good old Jed. So Jed takes care of all the construction, and I do all the office stuff, and it seems to be working pretty well so far. But what I faced was, and really this will give you some context, compared to what happened during 2020 to 2022, and maybe a little bit at the beginning of 23, is that the work seemed to come to us pretty easily. And then in 2024, we had interest rates go up, and we had a bit of inflation, and that really softened off the inquiry level. That was definitely obvious. So when Jed and I kicked off the business in August of 2024, we thought we were going to sort of absolutely dominate, and we really have not, as well as what we thought. Obviously, when you sit down with me as a coaching client, we talk a lot about what's happening in both of our marketplaces, and I bring to the table my experience as a builder, just like you. And so what we felt was that it was what I felt was that the way that we were estimating was a little bit too general. And so what I'm going to do today, now, if you're quoting and you're just putting markup on and you're happy doing what you do, then the rest of this episode, this lesson, if you like, may be irrelevant, right? But if you're looking at a way to really know what your baseline is as far as profit per project, this might be, the profitable pricing system might be something that is good for you. Now, I know both ends of the scale. If you're doing $250,000 a year because you're a one-man band and that's all you do, this will be appropriate for you. If you're doing $500,000 contracts and you're doing $3, $4, $5 million a year, this will also be appropriate. Okay, so let's just cut to the chase. So rather than taking, let's say, 100,000 plus what we talk about a lot is 43%, which is going to give you a $143,000 contract, what we actually want to do, now the goal is that we're trying to, after it's all said and done, come up with a 10% net profit. Okay? That's the goal, that's the aim. So starting with the end in mind is always a good place to begin, right? And so starting with 10% as a net profit, what I see a lot of operators do is they basically just go week to week, month to month, year to year, and just make a paycheck because of the way that the business is, or the way the projects are priced, okay? And so what we need to do, and there's really a few parts to that go with this, and sort of sitting down with a client one-on-one is a little bit more, it's a little bit easier for me to do. Doing it with a camera, it's a little bit boring, but we'll do our best here. But this is the end result, right? So what we want to do is, instead of going that route where we just take our cost of goods sold and then we mark it up, what we're actually going to do is we're going to go and flip it on its head. And the reason we do this is, and you'll know this at the back end of this conversation, is that we're actually being able to put together expansion capital into pricing today, so that in 6 months when I want to put on a supervisor or a superintendent, we absolutely can. Okay, so really we're like, when you, labor and materials, so labor, materials. Now I always like to think about, obviously, delivery, and then plus sort of handling if there's any on-site storage, and then I've got to move it, I've got to double handle it. That's really what it comes down to: labor, materials, and then some delivery in there as well. Now, on top of that, now, what I want you to get you to think about is, what about, instead of adding just a markup to create gross profit, why do we not just start thinking about adding all of those management fees and contingencies, sales commissions, payment processing methods? Why don't we add those in as a line item? Okay, just think about that for a second. So what I'm getting at is, on top of those three things, which are pretty standard, why don't we add management fees? Now, the cost plus guys are good at doing this, right? Because that's how they make their money. Okay, so we're going to kind of steal that. And then there might be sales commissions. Now, this is good too, because it gets you starting to think about, if you want to build a business, this is going to be something that can be relevant to you both in the here and now and the future. But if you're just wanting to sort of, get along just by, doing a little bit, maybe 250 or 500,000, maybe you don't need to add sales commissions in. So payment methods, right? Consider putting something in, because what do people want to do? Do you take credit card? Now, something I did yesterday was I got onto the Square website and I ordered me one of those little doodads that plug into your phone or communicate with your phone or whatnot, so that I can take credit card payments. So the point I'm making, if you've got, because you could get charged up to, I think 3.4% per transaction. Now, some of the smaller transactions are okay. The dollar value that they take off you as far as a fee is all right. But once you start getting into the bigger amounts, you might start thinking about the size of the fee that's going to come out if they use credit card. What it comes down to is all of these totals here are going to come up with a dollar value. Okay, and so if we use the magic number of 100,000 for all of this, so this is what it comes down to. What we're going to do is we're going to add 12% onto the back of that. So that's going to essentially be 112K as a contract. Now, look, where do I go from here? Right, management fees. This is something that I'm going to talk about in a second. How do I calculate management fees? Now, I'm not sure how cost plus guys do it, but this is how I do it. So sales commission, you're going to come up with either a number or a percentage. So you're going to kind of figure what that number is. And also any payment method amounts that you put in there, we're going to use that. So the most important thing I would say, and maybe I can just leave that up there. This is where I talked about a little while ago. It's like what we're going to work out. Let's say your business costs 10K per month to run, which is a cheap business. We're probably more like 15,000, right? and we multiply that by 12 months, that equals 120K. Now, in Canada, here in British Columbia, there is about 240, and I'm going to need a calculator for this, maybe I should have brought that out, but there is about 240 working days. So I'm going to divide that by 240 working days. Dom, can you divide 120 grand by 240?
500.
Right, so we're talking about $500 per day. Now, if you are the type of guy or gal that runs a company that just does one job at a time, then what you've got to use is you've got to use this $500 a day number, right? And then you've got to figure out, if this is the project, what is the duration of the project, right? In days. Now that'll take me going somewhere else. You might sit there and go, Max, how am I supposed to figure that out? Well, what I do is, because we use JobTread, okay, what we do is we'll go into the scheduling tool and I will basically look at my estimate and I will list out all the tasks. So I've said it before, what we do is we build it in our head. So we begin at the top, make a list down the bottom, we can slide, if we leave something out, we can just click on that and drag it up, right? And then what I do is I pick an arbitrary start date, and then I allow the days that I need for the tasks in that schedule, and slowly but surely, it will come down to the handover day, which is the date of completion, and there I'll have my actual number of days. So I can look at the calendar and figure out number of days. Right, so when I'm talking about management fees, let's say I had a job that takes 100 work days. So 100 work days times 500 is 50,000. Okay, so that would go in as a management fee, and then it would be subject to the plus 12%. Right, so what this does, it does a couple of things. And just look, be sure to know that just like if you didn't calculate the right amount of concrete or rebar or lumber or timber, or whatever, or the amount of tiles, if you undercook it, you will lose money. So if you undercook the number of days, right, that project, you think that project takes, then you're going to shoot yourself in the foot anyway as well, okay? So profits is a natural byproduct of good estimating, right? So, so when it comes down to it, what we're doing is we're getting all of the costs that are associated with the project, and all we're doing is marking it up to 12%, okay, which is essentially creating that 10% net profit. Okay, that's the baby. And we've got to protect that baby, okay? So 10% net profit. Now, when people ask me, like it's an awkward conversation, because when we are in that world, right, where we've done the whole 43% markup thing, and we know we're creating a margin of 30%, like that sounds like we're making a lot of money. What clients see, if builders don't understand markup and margin, what chances have you got of homeowners understanding that? None, nil, right, for the most part. So what we want to understand is, when people say to me, then this is what I like. So here's a bit of a sales tactic, okay? When people say to me, Max, how much money are you making out of this project? I say to them, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, I only make 10%. Now, that sounds like it's like a $100,000 contract. Max is only making 10%. He only makes 10 grand. That's the facts. Because when I've got to pay my labor, when I've got to pay my materials, when I've got to pay my delivery, when I've got to pay my team, when I've got to pay my sales guy, when I've got to chip fees back to Stripe or whoever it is, that's not me making money. That's me being a conduit for cash. It's got cash flow, cash in, cash out. What sticks with me, the goal, is this 10% net profit. This is the baby. So if you end up building a $2 million business, it's invoiced this year, this financial year, for $2 million, and you keep 10%, that means in your bank there should be 200 grand. Is that a good year, yes or no? That's a great year. That's what we're going for, folks. Okay, so really what it comes down to is you've got to be able to calculate your labor, you've got to be able to calculate your materials, you've got to be able to think about your delivery. Is there a couple of deliveries? We're just going to kick off a job on Monday. and we're getting the initial delivery down, a couple $100 for a hardy board, and we're not getting the whole order. So guess what? We've got to have to pay another $200. Have I got that estimated into the quote? Absolutely. 3 deliveries, because I knew that when I talked to the supplier, he said, look, we've got some in stock, but we're going to have to get more in. So straight away, he split my order up. So I've got to then account for that in my estimate. Okay, right. Yep. Normally when I'm talking with clients, we kind of chit chat. And so I'm kind of keeping the convo going. So I'm trying to think while I'm talking, so bear with me. Right, now normally what I do is I'd say, have you got any questions? So if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments, or better still, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com. Get across there and just get into your email and shoot me an email. I'll tell you what I should have done at the start. Open your email on another screen while you're watching this on your phone or whatever, and start just typing questions in and get ready to send me that email straight after this show. Okay, because I think this is going to be a good one. This is going to change the way you think about quoting and estimating. Okay, right, where am I going to go after that? So so this is interesting, because having had a few clients in my time, what I see as the biggest struggle is that it's like, Max, I know this job. I've given the client, I've told him it's going to cost him somewhere between, where's my dollar value over here? I've told him it's going to cost him between 90 and 120, right? That's my estimated price range, okay? Right, I've told him that, but Max, now I've got to get to the fixed price. Now, if you're cost plus guys, you're going to go, boo-hoo-hoo, we don't have to do that. It's like, fine, okay, fine. Just by the way, I'll talk about this later. This will get your juices going, since you know that I'm a fixed price design and build. I had let's just say we've just got a job that we're doing on cost plus from a previous customer. And on that job, I'm doing cost plus 20%. Send me an email, tell me what you guys do for cost plus. Because I looked at it and went, I'm not doing cost plus under 20. And he's like, okay, no problem. So we got that job at cost plus 20. All right, so estimated price range. So the biggest challenge that guys say to me, they go, Max, I know that this job, based on my historical data and my experience, is going to be worth somewhere between 90 and 120. But now I've got to get a fixed price. And Max, I asked these tradespeople to give me quotes. And I know that it probably doesn't happen to you lot, but it does to me. It's like all of a sudden I get subs that go, yeah, I'll give you a quote, all good intentions. And then what happens? Crickets. Big promises, no delivery. That's not looking after my business, okay? So what we're doing, do I want to get rid of that? Do we need that? Not really. Okay, so what we're trying to do now, what this episode has come out of, on this board before we started shooting here, I had my whole layout for the home show all set up here, ready to go in scale so I could see what was going to happen or how it was going to flow. And what's happened in the last 6 months with me doing a lot of frontline quoting, and then we're going to the show. And every time I go to that home show, I'm like, what can I do that sets me apart from my competition? Now, there's only probably a handful of other builders in that show, but what can I do? Right, so the first thing we did, we had a jelly bean competition. Big bucket of jelly beans. You can see through the thing, and you can go, okay, this is going to be X amount of numbers. And they would give us their number, their phone number and their email, and they'd go into our database and we can put them on a nurture campaign, right? So that's like, tick, good idea. The next thing we did, business partners in Australia said, hey, we've got some inflatable hammers. So we're like, mate, send me 500. So we did. So we have a little mini compressor and we take turns to blow them up. And the kids absolutely love them. We had kids run up to us at the last show going, have you guys got the hammers? Because we're in the same booth, right? And so we got the hammers. Then I thought to myself, what's happened with me in the last 6 months is that I have not had the greatest success. And I kind of think I'm not a bad sales guy, not a bad estimator, not a bad business operator. And yet I wasn't closing the amount of deals at the profit margins that I expected, okay? So what I'm doing at this next home show, and next week we're going to do, I want to talk to you a little bit about what I'm doing. It's called Quote at the Show. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of a breakdown, a debrief, and let you know how it went, right? This is real time, okay? So this will come out, this episode will come out 3 days before the show, 2 days before the show. And then a week later, I will do a quick, I'll do a roundup of events that happened, and maybe we'll put something on socials during the show. But what I decided to do, now, even though I wasn't signing contracts, I was learning, okay? Even me, old Maxie was sort of learning some lessons. And the reason is because there's new technologies. And I'm looking at that technology going, how does that influence my business? How does that enable me to be better at what I do, more successful at what I do, okay? And so we've just talked about a rough overview on the pricing, the profitable pricing system, whereby we have line items built in for everything from materials to labor to running cost to management fees per day, okay, sales commission, dollar values, dollars in there as well, plus maybe payment method fees that go in there, and that all just gets marked up by 12%, okay? So if you add something in there later, it's going to miss the boat because there's going to be no profit on there and it's going to be out of your pocket, and we don't want that. But what we're talking about now is we had that 90 to 120, now I've got to get it nailed down, okay? And so the way that we're doing is we're embracing a few things, or we're going to need what I would call some fairly significant pillars to hold up our house as far as estimation and quoting goes, right? And the first thing is the skills that I bring to the table as a builder have come from many, many years of being involved. So I've got the skills as a natural byproduct of the experience. Now, we hope that that's how it happens. Sometimes we have the experience and we don't learn, and then we don't develop skills. So we're no better off, even if it was a negative or a positive situation. We don't recognize the benefit. The third thing there would be software. What program are you using? Like I said at the beginning, we're using JobTread. You could be using BuilderTrend. You could be using CoConstruct, all matter of software. If you are just using a spreadsheet, you're gonna find, because it's just a one-trick pony, and some people might argue, they go, I can spreadsheet the shit out of you, Max, and I'm like, okay, but what I'm going to chat with you really quick about the next 10 or 15 minutes is, I know for a fact that Excel spreadsheets cannot communicate with my clients online, okay? And really, if I was just trying to compare a job management or quoting or estimating software versus spreadsheets, the game would be up. It'd be like, well, there's some similarities, because essentially the estimating software is just a glorified spreadsheet, okay? Okay, so that's what we've got. We've got that in place. And then the piece de resistance, or the cherry on top, that I found has been working for me terribly well is the use of AI, artificial intelligence. Now, I've shared this with a few of my clients, and they've begun to embrace that. But it is a little bit tricky, because trusting AI is definitely a challenge. There's no question. But over time, we can start to program or start educating the AI to suit you and me personally, okay? So they're the few things. So the first thing is there, we've got to have the skills. Second thing is we've got to have the experience. Third thing is you've got to have the software. And the fourth thing is there, we're going to be starting to talk about artificial intelligence, okay? So this is where I then started to think in a few weeks before the show, so a few weeks ago, I thought to myself, I'll give you an example. Yesterday I had a call from Mr. Homeowner, and he's got a deck. And over here in Canada, they do a lot of sun decks with no roofs. So if you don't do the floor covering on the deck properly, or with some durable materials, then the deck surface ends up shit, which this was. Interestingly enough, below that deck was some habitable living area, which I'm like, when I saw the photos, it was like, mate, that's going to be a big job. So what I'm getting at, this is the good case study. Here's the example. He rings me on the phone, okay, at the office here. Hey, mate, how you doing? Tell me about your project. Tell us your story. And I said, tell you what you can do for me, because I don't do free quotes. But what I will do, if I don't have to come out the office, I will give you a price range estimate. So this is not a quote, okay? And so here's the qualifier. So I use the software to qualify. This is what Excel spreadsheets cannot do. If that homeowner said, Max, go kick rocks, get in your truck and come and see me, guess what would happen? Old mate would be disqualified. Unfortunately, we're not going to be in a position to be able to provide a bid for your project. See you later. We're done. Okay? So he said, oh, really? So I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. He said, yep, I can do that. I said, okay, I will send you a welcome email from our portal, from our system. What I need you to do is to jump back in there and add some pictures of the project so I can take a look at them, which he did. So that was good. So then after that, he then called me again. We had a bit of a chat and we talked about some scenarios. So this is where I guess we have a mixture, of sales skills and construction experience. Okay? Now, if you've just got out of your apprenticeship and you're saying, I'm going to go and tear the retail world apart, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to struggle because clients feel it. They smell the blood in the water. So when I'm talking to this homeowner and I say, look, I've looked at the photographs. I said, that surface is shot. It is no good. Tell me what's underneath that, what's downstairs, what's below. See, questions are the answers, what's below. And he says to me, actually, that's a suite. And I'm like, so you're telling me you've got habitable area under that deck? And he's like, yeah. And I said, I can see the joints have opened up. It hasn't been done properly. It's a DIY, project. And it's not been done properly. And therefore, my concern, two things. One, I've got moisture penetration into that floor space. Two, because of that moisture penetration and it's a dark zone, guess what I've got in there? I got black mold. So then those are the questions and the chitty chat that we've had. And I said, look, I can give you a fixed price quote to drop the handrails, tear off the plywood, and to then reinstall new plywood with a proper waterproof covering. They call it over here, they call it Duradec. I said, however, what I find after I've done the invasive inspection, well, all of that is off the table. That's not included because that I can't see. And so I said to him, look, I'll tell you what, I will get you an estimated price range. See, there's always conditions. Because there is sometimes where we don't know what we're going to find, but what we've got to have the ability and the confidence to do, which comes from skills and experience, is to be able to give the client something. Now, who knows, what's the worst thing about going to a restaurant, seeing something awesome on the menu, you think that's priced pretty well, I think I'll have that ribeye, and then you've got to wait an hour and a half for it. We all of a sudden, the whole experience, no matter how good the food is, has basically been shot to bits because of the wait, right? So what I'm thinking about over here is speed. Now remember, we talked about the fact that we get subs and they don't get us quotes back and it holds us to ransom. Well, I want you to know right now that AI is your new co-pilot. Okay? Now I think that's a Microsoft term. But AI is now, you're going to put yourself in a position with AI, once you tune it up and once you've done some cross-tracking and some backwards and forwards and you know how to prompt AI, this is what I believe that I'm primed, ready to go to a home show and do $2 million worth of quotes at the show, okay? And so we're going to talk about how I went next week and how things, and I might just say to you folks, don't do quote at the home show because it's too tricky and it's too hard or it doesn't work. So I've got no historical data. This is a pioneering effort that we're going to do, and so it's going to be exciting. But what we're talking about is tuning up this piece of technology because I think for the most part, all of my viewers out there, whether you're using Excel or whether you're using any kind of other job management software, this is not really a problem. I think you'd have that sorted out, okay? Now, side note, this whole qualification thing, if people don't use my software to communicate, I just can't, it's just not going to work because I'm dealing with so many clients. If you're going to be a $3 million business and your average contract value is $100,000, that's 30 jobs. And you think about 30 jobs, if I'm, and let's say your lead-in time is 60 days, the amount of overlap between new clients to existing sales to projects, the overlap is going to be stacked pretty high. You've got to have a system. I can't be dealing in text and emails. It's not going to happen, okay? And so this is why qualification from the beginning, okay? I had a client in Calgary, and I might have actually talked about this on the last show. I sent her a, hey, haven't heard from you. Look, feel free to come back to us. We're basically closing your file. Well, a couple of days ago, I got this email. Oh, we've had family stuff, and we I want back in. So I converted that back into an open file, and she's now communicating there again. See, so it's not that I wouldn't have opened her file up if she didn't send me an email, but we're in a position now where she's gotten used to very quickly using my software, and that's great because at a glance I can see who's messaged me. Okay, so the way we go about using AI is basically what I've got here. This is a 5-page document in probably font number 10 or 11 that I've developed for my own use. It is going to be on my screen at the home show that I use it, home additions and conversions, outdoor and detached structures, efficiency and profitability considerations. Like all of these are AI prompts, okay? Even poly B removal, which some of the Aussies and Kiwis might not know, but the Canadians definitely will. And that is what I use as my co-pilot. So this goes from being a co-pilot to somebody that I can ask questions about, okay? So this is probably, when I start talking about this, all I'm trying to do is knock the lid off. Max, how am I going to do quoting using this new system for profitability? And how do I then incorporate AI into doing quotes so I'm not completely reliant on subcontractors who their businesses are a mess, and there's a reason they're not communicating or not getting back to you because they don't have a system. So your business is being held to ransom by those guys. The minute you say to a plumber, hey mate, I've got a job here worth 10 grand, here's the scope, can you do it? You mean I don't have to quote it? Nope. But you're not getting a dime more than what's on that PO, just so you know. Okay, all right, I'll do it. Like, see, all of a sudden we're removing what creates a jackknife in our ability to win deals. Now, the other thing this does is gives you leverage. So I am privileged enough to have one client in particular who are a husband and wife. And of course, like us builders do, we love to put the bag on and go and work out on site and drive around and pick up materials and all that, and I get that. But we're going to use this system to cut his quoting and estimating time by 50%. That's the goal. He's like, right, I spend 25 hours a week quoting, after hours usually. I want to try and get that down. Now, what my goal is to take the wife and develop a prompt system so that she can do the heavy lifting on the quote for the client and then just give it to the builder to review really quick. Now, most of us will know, okay, it's worth this much a square foot, but I'm not going to go to contract on that. I need to cross-check that with the micro, okay? And so this is where we start to get this balance, and certainly in the team. So the fact is I don't need to be out on site with a bag on. I don't even need to pick materials up. That's my business partner's. That's his domain. He is the site superintendent. He's the construction manager. I'm the project manager and work all the sales up front. So for me, this is like, instead of ringing Jed and going, mate, I've got this deck. Here's the funny thing. My business partner got on a plane and went to Los Angeles. Now, I sent him a message going, hey, can you check these photos out? And if you get a chance, hit me back. Well, he didn't, understandably, because he's on vacation. He did say he was going to be available, so I thought I'd throw it to him. But instead of waiting for him as my co-pilot, I went straight into AI, used my prompts, and come up with a fairly basic understanding of what that project was going to be worth. Now, because I wasn't quoting it, I could get away with the price range. So I put a lot of that AI information into my budget estimate, along with all of those other line items we talked about. How many days is this job going to go for? Right, it's probably going to go for 5 days. Okay, so we put that five. I think I actually jacked it from 5 to about 9 days because I'm like, I'm going to make sure, because there could be some backwards and forwards, right? And I was doing an estimate, so I don't want to undercook that. So I think I ended up giving it to him for 29 to 34,000. That was the price range, okay? So this only works as good as you've got it tuned up. Now, I've had clients that I've done screen share with in a coaching call where I've started to demonstrate how I use AI. And they're like, whoa, I've never put that much information into AI, right? And I said, well, the more info you give it, it gives it more context, and therefore it can give you a more accurate readout, okay? Look, I don't know what else. I mean, you've got to have the skills which develop over time. You obviously, the experience is really just, that is a time thing, and the skills is a byproduct of the experience. The software is the software is the software. I think we'll have the link in for JobTread. But this AI, I would not go to this home show and you can't see it off screen here, but there's a little quote at the show banner, right? Quote at the show. I would not run this quote at the show promotion if I did not have, I could have those three things, but I wouldn't do quote at the show. I can't do it fast enough. Where am I going to get the data? This is the game changer, speed. Okay, now here's why. Here's the thing. This is what I'll finish on. What happens is usually, and I've done enough home shows to know this to be facts. So we do the home show this weekend, let's say. And then what happens is we're running around cleaning up from the home show, and we try to make a few phone calls. And we all know the power of speed to lead, okay? Because at the show, all we've done is we're going, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, tell me a story. Here, we've got our client inquiry form. Can you please give us your name and your address, and we'll put your email and we'll be in contact. And then the next week, we kind of just get busy post-home show and we don't really get round to them. And then the next week, we start making phone calls in the second week. And so then by the second week, we're making arrangements maybe for the following week. So we're in week 3 after the home show. Then we gather the data and we run around tapping our various subcontractors on the shoulder in the 4th week to get the numbers together. And then we give them a quote in the 5th week, and it takes them a week or 2 to organize their shit to make decisions. And in the best case scenario, we get the job. In the worst case scenario, we don't get the job. But then we're up at that 6-7 week mark, maybe more. Okay, and the problem that I'm trying to overcome right now is not only am I going to try and put out speedy quotes and quotes that are accurate, some people at the home show might not get a quote. They might actually get the estimated price range document, okay, but which is not bad. Okay, so, but in some cases, we will be able to give them a quote. I mean, if you come into me and say, I've got a bathroom and here's pictures of it, but like, no problem. We'll be able to put that together pretty quick, okay? So this is where what we're trying to do is shorten the amount of time to go from the initial contact to the contract. So the other thing that we're doing to complement that home show is I've got a pull-up banner that says, this is how you get your details to me. And if you don't respond to a text message and the welcome email, your inquiry will be suspended. That is on 2 pull-up banners that are going to go at the show because there's rules, okay? So remember I talked about how we use software to qualify. You won't get your quote at the show if you do not give me adequate amount of spoken information. You don't tell me your level of finish. Is it going to be essential, standard, or premium? You're going to be able to give me photographs. I don't care if you draw something on the back of a document and then take a photo of it and upload it. The more information, the better the chance of you getting a quote. If I hijack the quoting process because you don't give me information, too bad, so sad, okay? So there's definitely, there's rules around how they got to qualify to get their quote at the show. And guess what? It costs them nothing. I'm sitting at the show, and if you had seen that layout, I mean, there's an 8-foot table that I'm going to have 2 screens set up, and I'm going to be in the quoting and estimating zone, and 2 or 3 of my team are going to be busy basically directing clients to not talk to them about the project, but see that weird guy sitting over in the corner? If you can get it on your phone and you got photos and you can put a description in, the minute you hit submit, he will get it in his inbox. And I'm just sitting there all weekend going to be quoting, right? Now, the other thing I did to meddle with the system, because this Copilot has given me some element of predictability, what I did is created, so I've got 2 sandwich boards, you know, those boards that come out like this, and they're 24 inches by 36 inches, which is, what's that, 600 by 900 mil? Gosh, I've been used to speaking Imperial for so long now. But anyway, they're 24. And you know what I've got on there? It's a menu board. It's a pricing guideline. It'll tell you how much for a 2nd story addition from 189,000, I think. Bathrooms from 22,000. Because people, when they get to the show, what they want is they want to know whether it's inside their budget or it's not, or they want to know if they've got the financial capacity or if they don't. And it's like, you know, for all the guys that work with me as a coach, there's some of you guys out there that, you know, oh, there might be guys not watching this program right now that have just moved on because they're like, oh, that Max, he's a twat, I'm not listening to him, right? And they moved on. Well, that's the power of having something where you can get to know me before you engage with me. Well, at the home show, who do I want to speak to? I want to speak to the players, not the pretenders. Now, is it risky for me to put a sandwich board out there with prices on it? Well, you're the builders, you tell me. Of course it is. It's actually crazy. But what I'm going to do is create such a buzz around our 20-foot by 10-foot booth. It will, and the amount of speed and information and education that we give to our homeowners and our inquirers, it's going to stick in their mind as to who they should deal with. Now, if there's people there that are price-oriented, they're probably not going to talk to us. But people that have got their head on straight are probably going, if they can give me a quote on the weekend, they could probably do the job pretty well. See, that's a competitive advantage because it's all about speed. I know that I don't like to agree with it, but the thing is, a lot of builders do new homes because there's certainty and predictability in the pricing. What we're trying to do now with AI and a prompt sheet, digital prompt sheet normally, is that we want to be able to get to the information, get the information back and get it done fast. So guys, look, a lot of information. If you've got any questions, drop them below. If you're listening to this on Spotify, I had meetings with Spotify last week because I couldn't get to your comments. So there's a few guys out there that will be nodding their head right now and saying basically, hey, I left comments, but you never responded. And some of them for 6 months ago. So I apologise for not being on top of that. But in the event that you can get on an email or you can drop them in the YouTube comments, that would be great. Because I think this one is going to get you thinking. Because Max, how much profit do I allow? Well, you don't actually have to worry about that. You've just got to worry about that 12% number that we talked about to create the 10%. Other than that, it's just how many days, what's your fixed expenses look like, how much materials, how much delivery, how much labor, is there any other contingencies that you've got to include? And you put that together and you start working it with this program where you might have enough skills, you might have enough experience, you've got the right software and you've got access to AI. My advice would be to start paying for it. And the other thing I'm using too, I've just started this week, was Perplexity. Some of you guys and gals might be already on that, doing better than me. But I've been really happy with ChatGPT so far. So don't forget, like and subscribe. One of these drops every week. Get across to B4B VIP on Facebook, answer the questions, and if you're a good sort, I'll let you in. And I think this show, this episode, this lesson is going to get some conversation happening. So go build a kick-ass business, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.